TakePoint is set in 2024, where the political situation between North Korea and the United States is heating up, as North Korea intends to launch a nuclear weapon that could potentially trigger the Third World War. To prevent the worst from happening, the President of the United States, McGregor, warned North Korea to shut down their nuclear weapons facilities. However, North Korea completely ignored the warning, which caused McGregor's electability as a candidate for the next President of the United States to plummet. Because McGregor was considered not to have enough power to face North Korea, because his popularity was plummeting, McGregor ordered the CIA to kidnap North Korea's defense minister, hoping to boost his electability ahead of the upcoming presidential election. To execute the plan, the CIA hired a mercenary group called the Black Lizard, led by a man named Ahab. The scene then switches and shows Ahab in a renovated bunker for a meeting between North and South Korea during the Cold War. Inside the bunker, Ahab and one of his men, Marcus, are seen monitoring their team that has prepared on the other side of the bunker to kidnap a target on orders from the CIA. In addition to discussing the kidnapping plan with Marcus, Ahab also took the time to examine a document containing information about a man named Logan who had just joined his team. From this information, Ahab learned that Logan was an expert in IT and hacking. Shortly afterward, a team member informed Ahab that the car of the target had entered the tunnel leading to the bunker. To ensure that Logan was ready for the mission, Ahab asked Logan about their mission. Logan replied that their mission was to kidnap North Korean Defense Minister Lee Young-tak, who was holding a meeting inside the bunker. Logan believed that they could carry out the mission without encountering any obstacles because they had prepared everything. Before the target arrived at the bunker, a female CIA agent named Mac contacted Ahab and asked him to confirm the target they were going to kidnap through the CCTV cameras that Ahab and his team had installed. When they showed the female agent some of the CCTV cameras inside the bunker, Mac then told Ahab that his team had installed the CCTV cameras at the wrong angle, so Mac and her team could not monitor them clearly. Therefore, Mac also told Ahab to install CCTV cameras in a better angle so that she could make sure that the group that would soon arrive at the bunker was their target. Ahab then ordered one of his men named Gerald to find a better angle so that they could monitor the situation inside the bunker more clearly. Shortly afterward, the group from North Korea finally arrived at the bunker, and to Ahab's surprise, the person holding the meeting inside the bunker was not the Minister of Defense, but the Supreme Leader of North Korea named King. King attended the meeting accompanied by his medical team led by a man named Yoon who was his personal physician. Upon seeing that, Ahab told Mac that the CIA should double their honorarium because the target they had to kidnap was the Supreme Leader of North Korea. Mac agreed to pay Ahab and his team a higher pay, but she insisted that the CIA and the United States government would not be responsible for the kidnapping, so Ahab and his team had to bear the risk themselves. Ahab did not seem too worried about the risks of his mission this time, because he felt quite confident that his team was capable of carrying out the kidnapping mission. Shortly afterwards, Ahab rushed to meet all his team members to inform them that their mission had changed and their target was now King, the Supreme Leader of North Korea. Ahab then asked his team about who wanted to lead the kidnapping mission, mentioning that the CIA had agreed to double their pay. Ahab actually wanted to lead the mission, but he had an accident some time ago which caused him to use a prosthetic leg. Although Ahab had mentioned that they would be rewarded handsomely if they successfully completed the mission, it seemed that none of his crew had enough courage to kidnap the Supreme Leader of North Korea. Therefore, Ahab then assigned one of his members named Jose to lead the kidnapping mission, because only Jose was reliable enough to carry out the mission. Ahab tried to convince Jose by saying that this time the kidnapping mission was their last mission and lured him with a much bigger reward if Jose was willing to lead the mission. Upon hearing that, Jose finally agreed to lead the mission, so they immediately moved to carry out the kidnapping mission. Ahab and his team immediately broke into the bunker that was the location of the meeting, then killed the North Korean soldiers guarding the place. Shortly afterward, Ahab contacted Mac to inform her that his team had successfully captured King and his personal medical team. But unexpectedly, one of the North Korean soldiers they had taken down was still alive and shot Jose in the neck, causing him to lose a lot of blood. So Gerald then urged Ahab to ask the CIA for help so that they would send a medical team to save Jose. However, Mac did not want to be responsible for this and immediately ordered Ahab and his team to take King out of the bunker and complete their mission. Ahab then became indecisive because he really didn't want to leave Jose, who was seriously injured. But they had no other choice because he had reached an agreement with the CIA, who refused to be responsible for anything that happened to Ahab and his team on the mission. In the end, Ahab decided to leave Jose and ordered his crews to hurry up and take King out of the bunker. However, when Ahab and his team were about to leave the place, they saw a television broadcast about a group of mercenaries who managed to kill the Supreme Leader of North Korea 10 hours ago. In the news program, the news anchor mentioned that the mercenaries had been captured by the North Korean army. Upon learning that, Ahab and his team finally realized that they had been trapped and their location was known to the enemy, so Gerald proposed to Ahab to destroy the path that the enemy would take to reach the bunker. However, before Ahab and his team could leave the bunker, they were suddenly ambushed by a group of mercenaries who were much more numerous and also had more complete weaponry. A gun battle between the two mercenary groups was inevitable, so Ahab immediately told Logan and Marcus to take King to a safe place. Ahab then contacted Mac for help and inquired about the armed forces that ambushed them. Mac informed Ahab that the armed forces were a group of mercenaries hired by China government to capture King. Mac assumed that China was trying to attack North Korea first by targeting King and using him as bait when King attended the meeting in the bunker. Although North Korea intends to launch their nuclear weapons, in reality, it is China that has control over the nuclear weapons. Mac thinks that North Korea might be planning a nuclear attack because of the United States' mistake, and China intends to prevent the nuclear attack and act as a hero to prevent the Third World War. Mac then tells Ahab that the only way to foil China's plan is to save King and make sure King stays alive. Arriving in a room, Marcus suddenly shot Logan and pointed his gun at Ahab while telling him to turn off the communication device connected to the CIA. Marcus revealed that he had been working with Alligator 47, a mercenary group hired by China government, where they promised to provide a huge reward for King. Marcus then offered Ahab to join the mercenary group as they would get a hefty salary and some very favorable benefits. Ahab seemed to consider the offer, but he secretly grabbed his gun as Marcus moved the unconscious King to the bathroom. However, when Marcus returned to the room, he realized that Ahab had taken his weapon. They then sat facing each other, and when Marcus was caught off guard, Ahab immediately seized the opportunity to shoot at him. But unfortunately, Marcus managed to corner Ahab and knock him down. When Marcus was about to kill Ahab, surprisingly, Logan was still alive and managed to kill Marcus. However, the shooting incident also caused King to be shot, so Ahab thought that King was dead. Ahab then activated the monitor in the room to monitor the CCTV cameras while contacting Gerald, who was involved in a shootout with the mercenaries hired by China. Ahab then informed Gerald that Marcus had betrayed them and King was dead. However, Gerald doubted that King was dead, because if King was dead, then the bunker would have been destroyed a few minutes ago. Upon learning that, Ahab rushes to check the heart rate detector on King's wrist and discovers that King is still alive, although his condition is currently very weak due to blood loss. Ahab assumed that the CIA would send the backup and help them get out of the bunker if he could keep King alive. Ahab then took the first aid kit and treated King to keep him alive while contacting Gerald to find the whereabouts of Yoon, who was King's personal physician. Gerald finally found Yoon and immediately connected him with Ahab through their communication devices. After connecting with Yoon, Ahab immediately informed Yoon about King's current condition and asked Yoon to give him directions to treat King. At the same time, the soldiers from Alligator 47 managed to discover the whereabouts of Gerald and Yoon, so a shootout became inevitable. During the onslaught from the Alligator 47 team, Yoon tried to give directions to Ahab to perform a blood transfusion to save King. Ahab tries to save King by following all the steps instructed by Yoon, but King is still in critical condition. Yoon tells Ahab to transfer blood into King's body, but finds the blood pouch useless because it's frozen. Ahab then remembered that Logan has blood type O when he checked his documents, so he then called a wounded Logan to the bathroom and after injecting him, starts transferring blood from his body to that of the King despite Logan's constant requests not to do so. After getting a blood transfusion from Logan, King finally made it through the critical period and his condition stabilized. Afterward, Ahab tried to contact Mac to inform her about King's condition and ask for help, but he was unable to reach her at all. At the same time, Ahab watched a television news broadcast that reported that the United States government denied their involvement in the assassination of the supreme leader of North Korea. Through the news broadcast, the CIA then announced that Ahab was the mastermind behind King's assassination. Ahab, who was still in shock because he was made a scapegoat by the CIA, was then surprised by a rumbling sound indicating that the bunker had begun to be destroyed to kill King. Shortly afterward, a huge explosion occurred and collapsed the place. When he finally woke up after being unconscious for a long time, Ahab found that Logan was dead, while King managed to survive and his condition was also stable, although he was still unconscious. Ahab tried to contact Gerald and his team members, but none of them answered his call, until finally he got a call from Yoon, who informed Ahab that only he managed to survive the explosion. Ahab thought that all of his team members had died, but surprisingly, Gerald suddenly contacted Ahab and informed him that 4 of their team members had survived. Upon hearing that, Ahab became relieved and tried to find a way out for Gerald and his team. Ahab also directed Yoon, who was trapped in the ruins, to find a way out so that he could reunite with Gerald and his team. After getting instructions from Ahab, who's directing them from the surveillance room, Gerald and the others rushed to find a way out to save themselves. Shortly thereafter, Mac contacted Ahab via his mobile phone because Mac apparently knew that King was still alive. An upset Ahab then asked Mac why they blew up the bunker, even though Ahab and his team were still carrying out their mission. Mac then informed Ahab that the United States government decided to get rid of all the evidence in the bunker so that the United States could refute China's allegations claiming that the CIA and the United States government were involved in the kidnapping of King. Mack added that McGregor was criticized by the public, so he made the decision to blow up the bunker to remove the evidence that explains the US government's involvement in King's abduction. Mack also informed Ahab that she had been dismissed from her position as CIA team leader, so she could not give official orders to send help to Ahab and his team. However, Mack told Ahab that she would help him to free him from the accusation of being the mastermind behind King's murder if Ahab managed to bring King out of the bunker alive. Mack tried to convince Ahab to follow her plan because if he managed to prove that King was still alive, then McGregor would win public opinion, which could boost his electability in the presidential election. After much consideration, Ahab finally agreed to follow Mack's plan, as he had no other more favorable options. On the other hand, Gerald and his team, who were trying to find a way out of the bunker, were intercepted by several members of the Alligator 47 team, who immediately launched an attack on them. While Ahab was giving directions to Yoon, he received a phone call from Mack informing him that McGregor had decided to send help to Ahab and his team. Mack asked Ahab to wait for the help that would soon arrive to save them. But unfortunately, Gerald and his team, who were involved in a gun battle with the Alligator 47 team, began to run out of ammunition, so they were finally killed. Ahab, who witnessed the incident through the CCTV camera, looked so shocked because in the end, all of his team members died in the mission. At the same time, Ahab realized that the Alligator 47 team was moving closer to him, so he decided to take King away. However, before Ahab could move to escape, he was suddenly attacked by a tank that managed to break through the wall in the room. From the hole where the tank attacked, Ahab saw Yoon, who was trying to escape from the enemy, and called Yoon to save him from the enemy's siege. Yoon immediately checked King's condition and realized that King still needed a blood transfusion to restore his critical condition. Yoon acted quickly to donate his blood directly to King, while Ahab tried to protect Yoon from the attack of the Alligator 47 team, who had discovered their location. In the meantime, through a television news broadcast, McGregor made a statement that the United States was indeed conducting secret military operations, but other countries had slandered the United States in an attempt to destroy the balance of world peace. McGregor then welcomed anyone to criticize him, as his reputation in politics was not important, as the US government's main priority at the moment was to save the US soldiers who were fighting for their country. In the speech, McGregor mentioned that Ahab was a soldier fighting for the United States, and he would make sure that Ahab would return to the United States safely. Because of his speech, McGregor's popularity rose again and his electability rose sharply to beat his rivals. Afterward, McGregor declares Ahab as a hero who fought to rescue King from the enemies, and eventually wins public support. Ahab, King and Yoon are rescued and taken in a plane, which is soon attacked by their enemies. An unconscious Yoon falls out of the plane and Ahab jumps with a parachute, first saving King and then Yoon by holding him tight as they swiftly reach the surface. The film ends with Ahab and Yoon, who manage to survive, and Yoon gives Ahab a shoulder as they begin walking. The moral that can be learned from this movie is never to have greed in our heart, because greed will only cause suffering in our life.